Hello, everybody. Michael Robertson Jr. here. This is episode 25 of the Hallowed Horror Podcast. And of course, I have with me this evening my good friend and co host, Mr. Jason Collins.
Hello and good evening, sir. Or good morning or good afternoon to our listeners, depending on when you're listening. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I am doing well. I had a busy day, and we just recorded. I feel like we're recording very rapidly all of a sudden. We recorded just the day before yesterday, the episode 1 recap from Lovecraft Country. That I posted that today on YouTube and the podcast channels, and also our Patreon page. And now here we are a day later recording another episode. So this may be the first time we've recorded back to back so quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yes, you are correct. It was the day before, and that was a good episode. I liked it.
It was good show, good episode. Looking forward to doing more of those for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to episode 2 coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, Sunday night. Yep.
Yeah, Sunday night. It's been a big week for cinema.
Well,
Tenet announcement.
What's the announcement you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the theaters opening up.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna kind of touch on, because I've been seeing the reviews coming in from Tenet. You know, now that they're starting to show that around places, and I keep seeing trailer after trailer after trailer everywhere for the New Mutants, the one with the younger, like, I don't know, is it an actual like tie-in to X-Men? I don't even know the story.
I think it is, yeah. And it is just a younger generation of mutants. But if we go by like Logan, Logan was at the end of kind of like that mutant era.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure. I don't exactly know where it falls into the timeline, unfortunately. But it does look fun. But you're right. It's all over the place.
That movie, I don't know what exactly it was that caused the issues with that movie, but it's been like finished for a long time. I've been reading like online people like saying, when is this movie ever going to come out? Like they were like delaying it, and they kept pushing it back like way before COVID. Like that movie was like stuck in some sort of like release schedule hell for quite some time. So it's interesting that they're finally releasing it now, like in this current climate. I don't know. It's weird, but I don't really have any desire to see it, except for it's got Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones, so that's kind of interesting. But other than that, I don't really have a strong desire to see that. I do have a strong desire to see Tenet, but I'll be damned if I go to a theater to see any of these movies. So anyway, yes, theaters are opening back up. We will see how long that lasts. Hopefully it does, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And then the other big news that happened just today at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, but I guess that makes it 6:30 here. They dropped the new trailer for the DC Justice League Snyder Cut.
Right, I did see that.
It looks fucking awesome. It looks so good.
Yeah.
I am super, super excited about it.
That's coming to HBO Max, and they said that it will be 4 1-hour segments. And then I don't know if they're going to wait until all 4 of them air, but they said that the viewers will also have the option to watch just one continuous 4-hour film. So it's almost like they're releasing it episodically, and then there'll be just the master like director's forever cut that you can watch if you should choose to do so. So
yeah, and that trailer, it showed so much going on in that trailer that they never even touched on in the first movie. So it's going to be so cool and surreal to be seeing the same movie but a completely different way.
Yeah, I remember when like they did even throughout the life of this podcast. Here we are 25 episodes in. We've had 2 films that have had director's cuts that definitely were not like the ultimate revision like this is, with just hours of footage added in, but there's been significant scenes that we have really enjoyed that will definitely either add to the story or change the look that you give a certain movie, and certain characters based on these extra scenes, that we really think that they should have been in the theatrical version because they make the film stronger, we felt. So, Dr. Sleep was one, and then what was the other one? Oh, Midsommar. That was another one that had some stuff. So, yeah, this is interesting just to have so much, extra, just hours, literal hours worth of extra footage to go in here.
Yeah.
I'll say this though. I'm not the biggest comic book movie fan. I do enjoy the characters. I do enjoy the movies when I watch them. I just don't like seek them out like as much as you do.
Hmm.
I'm actually pretty excited for Black Adam, just to see The
Oh
Rock,
yeah.
and as a superhero. That's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's gonna be really fun. Yeah, it's there's some good movies coming out. It's gonna be a really fun, wild ride for that genre of cinema over the next few years. Oh, and they just dropped the newest trailer for Wonder Woman 1984
All
too,
right.
and that looked really good.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and they also announced Suicide Squad 2 as well. And I don't remember seeing an actual trailer for it, but they kind of did a rundown of all the characters that were going to be in it. So it was kind of a big week for trailers, especially for comic book heroes.
Right.
So
But we're not a comic book podcast, are we? We are a horror podcast. So
you're absolutely right.
let's right this ship and get back on topic. Well, I'll go ahead and say it. We're talking about a movie tonight that we did it when one of our trailer impression segments over on Patreon. It's a horror comedy anthology on Shudder. I believe it's a Shudder exclusive called Scare Package. And we were excited about this when we saw the trailer. It looked like it was going to be a lot of fun. You and I both sat down and watched it last night, and it was not a lot of fun.
It really was not. It was more than it not being very fun. It was kind of disappointing. We both had high hopes for it because we love anthologies and we love shorter films, short stories. Seeing a lot packed into a shorter amount of time, and then anthologies, them throwing them all together and seeing how they all kind of relate to each other is always a lot of fun to watch. It's a good little experience. This one seemed, as far as an anthology goes, pretty disjointed. I didn't really see how they flowed together. Most of them, a few of them were a bit related, but overall, not a terribly fun watch.
No.
It was more of a goofy movie than anything.
Not to be confused with the mid to late 90s, a Goofy movie from Disney, but it was a. So I see. So anthologies don't necessarily have to tie into each other, right? I mean, that just is sometimes something kind of cool, almost like a bonus that some anthologies will do. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the good ones like VHS. I mean, none of those movies really, none of those shorts really tied into each other. They do sometimes. They absolutely do sometimes. This one did not. So yeah, there was a sense of disjointment here, but on top of that, it was almost as if part of the main plot of this movie, which I'm considering the main kind of glue that held this together, was the scenes that took place in the video store. It almost seemed like they were trying to give the impression that somehow these worked together or had some kind of bigger purpose, and they really did not. But before we get into it, we'll go ahead and just briefly touch on some of the cast and crew. Really, just two. This was a concept and film created and partially written by Aaron B. Kuntz, and the other name was Cameron Burns. They, I think, are getting the created by credits. And then if you jump over to IMDb, every single one of the episodes in this anthology, or the segments, I should say, as they're calling it, seem to be written and directed by a handful of different people. So not only were they written and directed by different people, I don't know if you pay attention to this in the credits, they really all had their own crew. I mean, it was like they literally just went out and just made these random kind of short films all under a kind of the umbrella. It was like they had a concept that they said, hey, stick to this idea of what we're trying to do here. And these guys went out and made them, and they meshed them together into this story. I'm using air quotes if you are watching on video, that kind of ties into the video store. So yeah, it was a lot of independent stories that fed into this bigger picture film.
Yeah, there was a lot of independent effort that went into the all of the extra movies, but there was this. It seemed like there was this revolving theme going back to the the movie store, right? And then the movie store kind of bled into that last
Right.
story as well. And so I think that's kind of where you were saying, where it seems like they were all maybe a little related, but not really. And then it also went back to, well, of course, the movie store sort of came from the cold open as well. And to be honest, I thought the cold open was probably the most entertaining one. Entertaining is the wrong word. I enjoyed the cold open more than I enjoyed the rest of them. And you said we watched it last night. I only watched like half of it last night. I watched the other half today. I was just getting. I was honestly just really disappointed. I got through like the first half of it last night. I just kind of decided to cut it off and call it a night because I just really wasn't invested in it. There was nothing keeping me in the chair at that moment. And the only reason I finished it was because we needed to do a podcast on it. So that I think that might speak volumes for kind of what kind of movie you're getting into with this. And then the other side of it is I don't think they were going for something that was groundbreaking, right? It almost seemed like they were trying to do something that was going to be more of a cult classic. Like they were like trying to do it. You know what I mean? The comedy was like really over the top. The dialogue was not great. The comedy did not hit on much of anything, but the production value was really good, and the gore was really good. So it's like they had a lot of talent there. It just I just don't know where it was utilized the best. And so we can get more into the story, but basically you've kind of broke it down. There was a cold open, and I don't think is there a storyline or a synopsis for this?
There was. It was and you actually read it on the trailer impressions episode. It's Chad, the owner of Rad Chad's Horror Emporium, recounts a series of bone-chilling, blood-splattered tales to illustrate the rules of the horror genre to his newest employee, which I'm going to use as a segue. If you have finished your impression of the film, I'm going to go ahead and say that was almost what this movie was starting out to be, and that would have been a premise that I would have been okay with, and that's also that description there is really nothing but the bookends that sandwich the rest of this movie. The beginning segment is like that, and the closing segment's like that, but everything in between is really just kind of out there.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's that accurate. He really wasn't trying to teach his new employee anything. He was just he had a new employee there, and he just was trying to make a best friend.
You're right.
He didn't go over. He wasn't teaching him anything.
You're right.
And his knowledge of horror movies really didn't even come into play until the end. And that's when he was the guy that knew everything about horror movies.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I understand that, but I wasn't putting that together. He didn't teach the employee anything about horror movies. It was really the last segment that he gets sucked into the movie, so to speak, that he becomes, like he kind of joked, that he becomes Randy from Scream, where he knows who all the stereotypical characters are. And it was kind of funny because when they got to that point, he was naming them all, like who they are. And they were like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the guy that knows everything about horror. And they're like, that's not a thing. And he's like, yeah, it is. Randy from Scream. And I was sitting there thinking, like, yeah, that's the only one I can think of, too.
Yeah, this is good, too. So it was, the synopsis was not accurate. And I was sort of disappointed. And that was part of why I was disappointed, because I sort of was hoping that would be the glue to all of the little shorts, but it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, and when we watched the trailer for the trailer impressions and we saw this description, that's what kind of made it exciting. We're like, okay, cool, we're gonna have a horror comedy, and we had recently it's been a few weeks, a couple months now. We had just done Satanic Panic on Shudder, and we were really excited because we thought that was a really good horror comedy. And then you also have kind of like the extreme side of things when it comes to the comedy, and almost like the satire and the parody. Back with like the Scary Movies, back in Scary Movie 1, Scary Movie 2, because those are just ridiculous, over the top, silly, completely unrealistic, but they're funny, they have good humor. They're rooted in humor. They're not trying to take themselves, very seriously. there's a lot of like areas I felt that this movie could have been slotted into based on the trailer and based on the premise that we see in the description. But it just didn't do anything. It didn't do any of it. And again, like you said, I like the beginning because that was like we meet the cold open guy, right? You know, where like his only job is to basically set up all the tragic events, and then he's talking to the girl who always plays the cop, and she can never hit a vital organ with her gun. Yeah,
I
it was
love
good. That was really cool. And then there his little like, accidental slasher thing that he runs into. I was a little bored with that. That was good there. And then the end, the longest segment is the last bit where the video store owner gets sucked in, and he's all of a sudden thrown into the mix with these horror film stereotypes. And then when they're in a training facility or a research facility with people trying to understand how horror movies work and what the rules are, and they have like whole folders full of stuff.
I really did enjoy that part. That was funny.
That was the best segment. So those two pieces, like I was like, oh, this is what I really wish that this entire movie would have been. So this is what I'll say about everything in the middle. I texted you last night because we were both kind of like a little bummed with how this was going, and I was like, this is kind of like one big SNL skit, one after another, and just it wasn't hitting for me. But if anything, this movie was a fantastic exercise of practical effects and gore and makeup. Like this was almost like if you, because it had no story, it really didn't have any story. This could have just been like a highlight reel of makeup and practical effects experts just showing off and having fun. And that's great because they do a great job, but it's not a film you want to watch.
So, and I'll touch on that little part where you said right there at the end where you a film you want to watch. But I even said this last night when we were talking, that it seemed like these guys, just from production value, right? Cinematography was pretty well done. It was colored really well. It seemed like they were using some pretty good cameras. It looked really nice. It looked well done from that perspective. And then the like you said, the practical effects, the gore was so good. It was really, really good. And it almost seemed like these were done by a few dudes or gals, people in the industry that have been there for a while, that have had a lot of experience, and they just had a bunch of stuff. And they were like, you know what? We've been in this industry for a while. We know all the tropes, and we've got a bunch of gore. Let's just put it to use. Like, we're all really good at it. Let's just do it. And it was the most ridiculous gore, too. I mean, heads exploding, people shoving fireworks down people's throats and lighting them. I mean, it was the most ridiculous stuff. And but it all worked. Like it was fun to watch. The gore was probably the best part of this, simply because there was no story, especially with the little, the shorter ones. And so that was really well done. Talking about your little segment or little part where you said it's not a film you want to watch, you're probably going to get there's and you can look at the reviews. They're very contrasted as far as people that love it and people that are like, this was really boring. I don't know why I spent all this time watching this movie. So I think there's probably a lot of people that enjoy that kind of horror, that tropey, campy, really gory kind of horror. That's just what they love to watch. And so this really hit on all the notes for them. But people that thrive on something that's, story based, that has something relatable, that can really, scare you to your bone, to your soul, this is not it.
But see, to me, and you're right, I'll look at some of the reviews. I mean, this I don't know what Rotten Tomatoes has, but this has an IMDb score of 5.6 out of 10, which to me is too high. Like, I can't believe that this movie has 5, and we have reviewed movies that we really, really enjoyed that have had less on IMDb or close to the same rating. But again, we're not going to get into the ratings, although ironically this is going to be the first film that we test out our brand new rating system on. But
yeah, we'll get that in a minute.
Yeah. Here's the thing to me. You said, there's a lot of people that really like just the gory, campy horror. Well, I'm one of those people. Like, I like that kind of stuff. I like the Splatterhouse. I like the 80s splatter. I like, even going back to the Satanic Panic, right? I mean, there was some really good practical gore effects and makeup in that. That's fine. But again, this had nothing to support the gore. I mean, even some of the segments were just like, what is going on? Like, there wasn't enough story. Short stories they don't have a whole lot of time to get your interest. They're supposed to grab you from the beginning, right? And they're supposed to carry you through to the end, and you have a good time in between. There were very few of these that even had a premise that I was able to grasp, like, and understand what's going on. So I go back to what I said. I'm standing by it. This is an exercise in makeup and gore and filmmaking that somebody left the story somewhere far behind down the road, because there's just none. And to me, that was like, Stephen King had the quote with The Shining, and this is on a completely different level. In no way, shape, or form am I putting these two films on the same universe or in the same universe together. He talked about Kubrick's The Shining and said it's like having this brand new, fantastic Cadillac with no engine in it. Well, here's a prime example of that. You've got amazing guys that can make some awesome stuff, but they just forgot to write a story. And it's just set pieces. But it's not even, what is this movie? It wanted to be a horror comedy. It's neither.
Yeah, that's true. They were going for, it felt like they were trying for, and I'm not going to at all say what they were trying for. I don't know but it felt like somewhere between Tucker and Dale, maybe even Evil Dead, those kinds of campy horrors but those were so good with story, and comedy was spot on, right? You had actual comedians doing their jobs, and it just happened to be really good horror wrapped around it too. So like I said, this was not hitting on much on comedy. There was no real good comedy. There was some decent one-liners, and the special effects, gore, makeup, top notch. It was really good.
Yeah. So there were a few moments where I kind of chuckled, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So I guess let's. You just said we can't pretend to know what these guys were trying to make. And again, they went out and they made a movie, right? I mean, all these people went out and they made a movie that, like you said, it looks good. Like, the production value we've seen worse. 100% we've seen worse. And again, in the indie world, and especially in indie horror, like, you don't have to be, shooting on a red and having $100 million, VFX budget. Like, you can make really good independent horror films because of the genre, or any genre really. But having watched everything on the spectrum of horror myself over the years, including horror comedies, I look at this movie and I just go, what is this? What was it supposed to be? And I don't have an answer. And I think that's what really just kind of tears this movie down in my mind, is just, there was nothing about this that I was able to grab onto.
Yeah. And so, just to kind of, not to dismiss the effort that went into this film. Right. There really was a lot of effort. You could tell there was a huge cast. If you kind of join all of the little stories together, big cast. The color looked really good. The editing, definitely had that 80s, 90s feel to it. So I mean, there was a lot of effort that went into this, and from that perspective, it was good. But from a story and plot standpoint, there's just not a whole lot to go over. And so, as I was actually mowing my grass today, thinking about what we were going to talk about, it occurred to me that I didn't really love the movie, and I needed to figure out why. Right? We needed to come up with an educated reason as to why we didn't really love the movie. So we've been talking about having some sort of rating system on this show since the beginning, right? And we've never really come up with anything. And so we chatted about it a little bit before we started recording. And I think we came up with a good solution. We'll try it out for this movie. You want to talk about how we're going to break down the categories?
Well, yeah, we're gonna give it a shot. And again, this is going to be, I mean, it's going to make sense for the rating, but it's kind of unfair to throw this movie into our first official rating system. And we have no idea if this will even stick or hold if we keep doing this. But we're going to basically break it down into the categories that we seem to always talk about, on the podcast, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the story, the strength of the story, the strength of the characters, and the strength of the production value, the quality of the production.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have the scare factor. Is it scary? Because all these things are present in the films, or are supposed to be present in the films. But in a perfect film, all of them are high. But you can have really good movies that have one or two of these categories that are a little bit lower. So
Mm-hmm.
we're basically not on the 10-point scale here. We're on the 12-point scale. So we're going to do 12 somethings. We're trying to think of something clever, or at least not horribly cliche, and we haven't done it yet. So right now we're just going to do stars, because why not? We're on the
Sure.
12 star scales, and each one of these categories gets a maximum of 3. So 1, 2, or 3 stars per category. So
Or 0.
or 0, yes. Which we may have one of those
We may have
tonight.
a 0 today.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out.
I'm
So
no
the first one I want to
psychic,
talk about is story, plot. And how we're going to break this down. I mean, there is no story that goes through the entire film. That's great. It's sort of disjointed, even at moments. For me, there's just not a whole lot to talk about with story. So story, while there is a hint of a story, it's just not enough to give it a star for me. So I'm going to go no star for story.
Okay. So I'm looking at it. I'm thinking about it from the writing perspective. Okay. I'm sitting down, or you and I are sitting down. We're gonna write a script for this movie. We have this idea, right? Oh, what if we make just I don't even know what the idea is anymore for this movie, but we're gonna make a horror comedy, and let's just base it off of the description on IMDb, right? Where we're gonna write about this guy who owns this rinky-dink video store, and he's gonna teach the rules of horror to his new employee. We know we want it to be an anthology, okay? So our job is we are going to write the meat. We're going to write or the glue, as we've called it. We're going to write the glue. We're going to write the bit about the video store. And we're going to go reach out to all of our, filmmaker friends and people in the industry, and we're going to have them write, direct, shoot the segments. We're going to give them the concept and say, go. We need 8 of these. Go have fun. This is supposed to be silly. Go be gory, go be funny, go do whatever. So we're writing the glue. They didn't write the glue. Like they didn't. I mean,
they forgot key ingredients.
Right. I mean, nothing came together. Like, I mean, let's just look at you had the introduction where they meet the video store guy. And you meet the guy that wants the true horror expert that's seen like every film, the Dwight Schrute of horror, as you called him to me earlier. He shows up, and then we get the new employee, the Asian guy who comes in to be the new employee. There's a dynamic that's kind of building here, and in theory, I would have thought that by the end, they would have had some sort of significance, right? These characters would have had a reason for being these characters. I really thought that the guy that was the White Schrute was going to have some sort of saving moment at the end. Like he was going to take the bad guy out, give him something as to why he is so knowledgeable. Nothing happened. The characters did nothing, and everything that happened in the middle was also pointless. The whole the room that the guy wasn't supposed to go in. Oh, don't go back there. And all it was a, thanks for being my employee party. Like it was terrible. I'm sorry. There's just nothing here. There was nothing there. So I'm giving it 0 for story as well.
Okay. All right. So next is characters. Here we're talking about, the characters that we were introduced to. Do we have backstories? Do we need backstories? Do any of them have any kind of rich history? What are their motives, their intentions? Okay, I'm going to remove all of the characters from the short stories. They're pointless here. They don't make any difference into the to the main plot line, right? That carries through to the end. So I'm only gonna talk about the main guy, the story, the what was his name? The guy that owned the store.
Rad Chad.
Rad Chad. Rad Chad was our horror expert, and while he seemed to know a lot, he was also pretty entertaining at moments. But he fell short at the end for me. He didn't really arc as a character for me. And the whole like needing of like friends and a father figure was just weird, but whatever. Then we got Han, the employee slash, doctor at the research facility. There was not a whole lot to him. He was just a double agent. And then we got our Dwight Schrute. What was it? I don't even know who his name was. But he wanted to talk about Jesus, taco about Jesus. But that's what his shirt said. He was, I liked him a lot. He was probably my favorite character. He had some depth to him. He had some motivation to being there. And he was just funny at times. But like you said, I was really hoping he was going to be able to use all of his motivation and knowledge for something good. And he just got his guts cut out. So he fell short for me too. None of the characters really amounted to anything. So, but I did like some of them. So I'm going to give it 1 star for characters.
Before I give my rating for characters, I just want to point out to you that, like I said a second ago, this movie has a 5.6 rating out of 10 on IMDb. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Beach House, which we did an episode on, and we enjoyed for the most part, is a 5.4. I
think there's a huge group of people out there that just really want gory, dumb shit. They just don't want to they don't want to have any kind of story that tells them anything. They just want to see people get blown up and ridiculous crap happen to people. When that girl, they lost me when that girl stood up out of the ditch and ran her face through a branch. That was the moment that they lost me in this entire thing. And then right after that, the dude threw a rock and her head literally exploded. Like there was a piece of dynamite inside of it. I was like, okay, I know what I'm in for this movie.
It's just so unfair that, I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, characters for me, the only character in this film that, like you said, had any arc to me, and it really didn't, and that I actually felt like was interesting was, again, what is his name? I can't remember his name. I'm looking on the IMDb, and I don't even know who he was. But the other guy that wanted the job at the video store, the creepy guy that had the Taco Jesus shirt on. He was the only character that I really thought, made any sense. The rest of them, I mean, to this movie's defense, this is what it was supposed to be. Every other character in all of the segments were really just, souped up cliches, caricatures of, horror film people, just the stereotype of characters. So it's hard to rate this movie on characters because of that. So I'll just go ahead and give it a 1 because there was somebody in there that I thought was remotely interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next up is production. This is where this movie shines. It was really well done as far as the cinematography, the editing. Pacing was a little slow at times, but for the most part, I really enjoyed the look of the movie. They had some great special effects. They were just amazing lighting, and of course the gore was just like over the top good. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 3 for that. They did really, really good for that.
I was hoping you were going to say that because that brings up a question to me as to how we're actually looking at production. So let's go back to Lovecraft Country for a second and how that was just amazing. I mean, from filming, editing, color, that movie is 100% as good as you can get in terms of production value. Mm-hmm. So what is our 3 actually? Is it because if that's perfect and we're going to say that's a 3, how do you give this movie a 3?
I'm not saying 3 is perfect, right? I wouldn't say 3 out of 3 is perfect. I think 3 out of 3 is just it's really, really good, right?
It's a strong suit of the film.
Yeah, it was. And so also consider Lovecraft Country is going for a polished look, right? They crush the blacks. They got a lot of contrast in there. The colors are great. The colors are poppy. They did what they needed to do, and of course, they have just a ton of like great visual effects happening. This is the movie. This movie is not trying to do any of that, right? From a visual standpoint, they were going for the practical gory effects, and also the color and editing were meant to be. They were meant to be done in an 80s 90s fashion. So from that standpoint, I thought they were really good. And horror films, these kinds of horror films thrive off of handheld looks anyway. So a lot of it was handheld, so it's not going to have that really clean, very stable look anyway, locked down. So I think from what they were trying to accomplish, they nailed it from that perspective. So that's why I give it a 3 out of 3.
Okay. I don't disagree. I was just trying to clarify how the scale was working for production. If it was like actual technical polish or just execution of what they were setting out to do, we think.
And I don't think it's fair to compare like production value from film to film, right?
Sure.
Because I think every film's going to be trying to produce something differently.
And it can be vastly dependent on budget. So,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you for that explanation. We are learning this on the fly as we go. I will give this movie a 3 also.
Okay.
So I've got a 0, a 1, and a 3. I'm at 4.
And I'm also a 0, 1, and a 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
So,
good Lord. Okay, yeah. So I'm at a 4 out of 9 right now.
4 to 9. Well, 4 to 12, but yeah, 4 to 9 as far as the categories that we have.
Yeah.
We've talked about. So next is the scare factor. It's not going to do well in this one, right?
Does not even need a discussion.
There's not a fucking thing scary about this movie.
No. Okay, so 2 zeros
and it wasn't trying to be scary.
No. Like that's all I said in the beginning. This is a really unfair film to put under our analysis for the first time, but it is kind of fun to take this one and actually discuss the different categories. Yeah, this is a hard 0 for me for scare factor. So my final rating is a 4 out of 12, which is
4 to 12.
Yeah.
Same here. 0 out of 3 for me for scare. And this is honestly, I think, a good one to do it with, because there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, oh my gosh, what a waste of time this was. And, oh, I hated this movie. It was stupid, or it was dumb, it was over the top dumb. And then there's going to be these people that are maybe you've listened to this podcast that are saying, how can you be so harsh? I mean, weren't you entertained? And the truth is, no, I was not entertained by this movie. I only finished it because we had to do a podcast on it. So,
right.
No, I didn't enjoy this movie. But it was the reason. If anything comes out of this movie, it's the rating. Hopefully, our rating system, because I needed to come up with a good reason why I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so let's just break it down and talk about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to, like you said, it does seem that we are bashing this movie, and it's just honestly because this is, based on the ratings, there's people out here that do like this kind of stuff. I don't know what you call this kind of stuff, but I do understand that people are entertained by it, and that's fine. You and I have very similar taste in horror, and we like a lot of stuff, but yeah, we both just really didn't get a vibe from this one that we enjoyed. So don't think we're bashing it, because again, we understand that we both gave it 3s for production. A lot of effort went into this movie, and I think the guys are all probably really talented, everybody that worked on it. But it's not for me. I'm still having a hard time just trying to figure out where you slot this into a particular subgenre of horror. And in terms of horror comedies, like I said before, I don't even know what to compare it to, because I don't know that I've ever seen a horror comedy anthology. So, I just don't know where to put this. I don't know even know what to compare it to, because it's obviously not going for anything serious. I go back to Scary Movie again, and like that had a story, that had entertainment value, that had comedy that hit, and it was silly comedy. Those were silly movies, but it hit the tone that it was going for. I just don't know where to put this film. I don't know what shelf to put this one on in the video store. So,
Yeah. This missed a lot of marks for me too. But just to echo what you said, production value was just really, really well done. There was a lot of talent in this. Just not, not great in the story aspect, and it was not good for what we enjoy,
right,
as viewers, right? So, for me, I don't think I would recommend this to anybody. And horror is one of those situations, or one of those types of movies where if somebody says, "Oh, I need a good horror movie to watch," give me some recommendations. I think it comes down to the kind of horror that they like in the past. And if there's somebody that really loves over the top, like is their favorite movie, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, or some of the more campy stuff, this might be right up your alley. You might really enjoy it. If some of your favorite ones are more Ari Aster, then this is not going to be your flavor.
No, but again, you can have a broad taste. You can have a expanded palette in terms of horror, because we like everything. I mean, we like a lot of stuff. We like the campy, we like the serious, we like the more fun stuff, we like the splatterhouse stuff. Like, we like a lot of stuff if it checks those boxes that we're looking for. If we can give it some ratings in this newfangled categories that we've cooked up here, you're right. I mean, I agree with you, but I don't even know what somebody could tell me that they like watching that I would say, go watch this, because I like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was great, and I did not enjoy this movie. So it's weird. It's just a weird one to categorize for me. I'm probably getting just so many people cussing at me right now saying, stop bashing this movie. I thought it was great, and I'm glad you liked it. I mean, somebody liked it. Shudder has it on there. I mean, somebody said there's an audience for this. I just don't know who it is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good reviews for it. So there's a lot of people that really do enjoy it. And that's wonderful. I didn't enjoy it.
That's wonderful. I wonder what Satanic Panic got on IMDb. I gotta look that up real quick. Let's see, because that was a horror comedy that I thought did a really good job of really walking that line of like legit kind of supernatural, spooky, along with the gore, along with the comedy. Holy shit, it's got a 5.6 on IMDb.
Wow.
So, okay. Well, I don't understand any of this anymore. We've got our own rating system now, though, so we don't need this IMDb rating.
I'm excited about the new rating system and seeing how it kind of plays out. We'll start hitting on this. If nothing else, it gives us a reason to kind of break down some of the story aspects, character aspects that we love to talk about so much. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to using it more now.
Yep. I am.
So overall, both of us, I think, gave it the exact same rating, 4 out of 12 stars.
Yep.
/ whatever we come up with later.
Which is what, 25%. So on a 10-point scale, that would have been a 2.5 on our IMDb rating. So
okay,
we are below average.
No. Well, Michael, you got anything else you want to add about this, about the film tonight?
I don't want to say anything else, because I don't want people to think that I'm just so against it. I think we've covered it pretty well. I think that the rating system did do good to kind of just show how we're going to start looking at films, and like you said, why this one just didn't hit the marks for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 25 of the Hallowed Horror Podcast. We have discussed Scare Package. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed this video if you're watching on YouTube. And I hope everybody stays safe, and we will be back next week for a brand new episode. Bye.